Hi. Today we're going to be talking with Mechele, who is the amazing developer behind the Maven ecosystem. I've covered Maven a few times on the channel, and I've been very impressed with how it works and how much it's progressed since I first looked at it. It's a great system and certainly something that I'm sure a lot of users will find useful. So without further ado, let's get to Mechele.
Okay.
So hi, Mechele. It's great to finally meet you. We've been chatting online for a long time and discussing,
Yes.
various things. So it's great to finally put a face to the name. So I'm going to start by just asking you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Maven. What made you create this system, and what keeps you awake at night and that kind of stuff. But just whatever you feel like saying. So I'm going to hand over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. It's a very pleasure to finally talk to you. And
I appreciate you taking the time.
sorry for my English. It's not very good.
Your English is fantastic. It's much better than my Italian. Let's put it that way.
Also, I want to thank you to invite me for this interview because I feel like kind of an outsider of this world.
Mhm.
You interview Piero, and also I read that you will interview Jim from Drone Link.
So Jim is up, and also there's another guy, and I'm going to butcher his name if I say it, so I won't say it here. But he's the guy that's taken over Drone DB, which I don't know if you've seen Drone DB, but
Yes.
yeah, it's I just started looking at that again because I looked at that a long time ago, and it's come a long way, a bit like your system, because I looked at yours like a long time ago. I looked at yours and I went, it's kind of, and then recently I looked at it and I was like, wow, this thing has really come along. So you've done amazing work there. So anyway, I interrupted your introduction, so please carry on.
No problem. I don't have prepared the introduction, so what can I say? Now I got Maven, that is my app for DJI Drones, and it all started from 10 years ago. I started to working with drones. I bought that time a pair of Beaver 2. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I know the Parrot. Yeah.
Yes, that was a very nice drone for the time. And turned out that it was possible to work with develop apps for that drone, and I worked with develop for passion, and it's nice. I start trying to do some experiment, but then there was at the time already an app for that drone that allowed it to follow you. I don't remember the name of the app, but it was about $10, and they say, "Oh, I spent $10. I can make it myself." And
Right.
it started.
That's the developer mindset. As an ex-developer, I used to have that mindset as well.
Then I show what I was doing on a social group on Facebook, and I got a lot of attention. And maybe I can try to put on a app store, and that goes really well. And from that, I continue to develop every day, but not every day. The Parrot drone. Then after that, they not introduce new drones. Well, yes, they introduced the Anafi Parrot, but very many years later, and I switched on DJI to continue working, and the Mavic Pro 1 was my first DJI drones, and that started, let's say, the Maven adventure.
Yeah, the Mavic was an interesting. I mean, you had the Phantoms before that, of course, but the Mavic was sort of a game changer when it came out. The Mavic
That's
One.
why yes, it was portable and was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, prior to that, being able to bring a drone along, and it took a big step forward as well in terms of the functionality it delivered, I think, and I mean, the Phantoms were a big step up on everything else, but the Mavics just took it to another level. So yeah, I totally get it. That's great.
Yes, I started with very little feature like the FPV. That was easy. I had a lot of stuff to learn. There was no AI back then to it.
You've built an impressive set of apps, I think, and I've just seen, you've got the Maven, you've got the Maven Evo. I'm saying Maven, you say it slightly differently, but Maven Evo, you put out Maven Bridge, which I think is a great tool. And I just saw that you've now in beta, I think you've got Maven Cloud, which is a whole new thing. So so tell me a little bit about Maven Cloud. What's new about that, and why is it important?
Yes, Maven Cloud is the last thing that I just released for everyone to try. It's beta, but it's working. Yes, the fact is in Maven Route, my web mission planner is introduce right now the ability to log in. So you can now create an account, and with that account, you have access to the Maven Cloud, where you can now save your mission and have all organized, get everywhere on other PC, and work on different days on the same mission without have to save somewhere or
Yeah, because in the past with the old system, you had to save it locally, and it was local as well, right? So you know, if I took my laptop somewhere and it was on the PC at home, that was no good, right? I couldn't access it. So yeah, now it's all online, and you can pick up, you can start on one machine, pick up on another one, download it when you're on site. So I think that's great. I think that's a big step up.
Exactly. A lot of people ask me for that because all other systems have similar feature, and that was very needed to my ecosystem. And also the fact that you can now log in is opening me to more function that I can attach to the account. Another cool thing about Maven Cloud is that I have also added the ability to share mission through links, which I think is quite unique. Basically, with one click, you can generate a link that can be either public or opened by anyone, or you can restrict it so only selected people can access it. If the link is public, anyone can open it. So Maven route will launch with the mission already loaded, and is not required even to log in. After you have created the link, Maven route can even automatically send it by email. I'm thinking to collaboration with Pierre too for processing the pictures or something like that. There's nothing in place. I don't know if I can mention that we have just exchanged a couple of emails. And
yeah, that was actually one of my later questions. So maybe we'll just jump to that, right? I know that, you and Piero are now talking to each other, and is that going anywhere? Does it sound like there's going to be some collaboration between you guys? By the way, I mean, I think you're both super talented. So I would love to see something come out of it. I think it'll be good for everybody.
I would love, me too. We have just exchanged a few needs. To be honest, I think it's me that I have to answer it. As I said, in the last 3 weeks, all day works on Maven Cloud to bring it to life. And so I wanted to finish this before started focus on other things. But I think we can maybe possibly bring some a workflow, let's say, for photogrammetry training.
Well, that'd be great. I'd like to see that. Just so this is just me, right? But as an ex-developer, so I was a developer a long time ago. I don't really do much these days. Yeah, I know how much work is involved in these things, right? I mean, that people sit and they play around with them and like, oh, that's really. I know there's a lot of work that goes behind it, and it's always the edge cases that are the worst bit, actually.
Yes,
But
exactly.
the main stuff comes together really quickly, and then the edge cases, just for that 1% that somebody might do this thing. But so how do you prioritize, and how do you keep up? And I know that you are a new father. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, how are you prioritizing your time with your family and with everything else that's going on?
So, yes, I got a daughter. Her name is Jasmine, and of course, she's changed my life.
Of course.
I want to say it's an adventure, a mission to keep all together, but it's a mess in reality. It's an adventure. Honestly, I have to cut a lot of activity. Like I was going to the gym and didn't go since was born. Before I was working because this is my second job. Let's say,
Yes,
I got a full-time job, and all the Maven ecosystem that I built, it was my side hustle, and it was in the afternoon or in the evening. But now all the time is with my daughter after that. And when she goes sleep in the night, I work in the night now. Right. 2 a.m. So I have to cut the sleep time also. So,
yeah.
But let's say the passion keep me. I can't stop. I can't stop developing. I got so much satisfaction in this project, and I think it's growing. And the momentum, and I can't stop because I feel like I can finally bring a very complete product
Yeah.
to.
No, I think that's a really interesting point, because I think a lot of these things, and I think Maven is a great example where, you know, it's the people are passionate about it, right? They got involved in it not to make money, right? Yeah,
Right.
you might make some money. I hope you do make some money, but mostly I find people get into it because they have a passion and they have an idea for how something should be, and it's not like that today, and they're like, well, then I'll make it like that, you know, which and I really appreciate people that take the time to do that, because you know it does take a lot of time. But I also feel like, and I remember this from my developer days, you know, you're just driven to do it anyway. It's almost like you can't stop. If you stop,
Exactly.
it's painful.
If I see something that I can do and I need to do, I have to do it. You don't know
Right.
how to say it. I love to do and then show what I've done to the community.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And it's nice to get that feedback. You know, I tell people in my videos all the time, I'm like, you know, I love to hear the feedback, even if it's people coming along saying, you know, hey, you said that was wrong. You know, I'm actually okay with that, right? You know, because I learned something new. But I love hearing from people and hearing that
Yes.
ideally, you know, they say, hey, you helped me. Thank you so much. And it's, you know, that's nice.
I should hire a talk for sell my apps because I'm not a good seller. I'm a
Right,
straight
right.
developer. In
That's
my
nice.
apps, where you can buy the function, I write it before buy. Be sure you have tried and it's working for you.
Right.
I slow down my sales. and,
Yeah,
but
sales is hard, and it's not a skill that a lot of developers have. It's very difficult, but if you want to make money, it's important. You know, it took me a long time to learn how important it is, but it is important. I know that
and
recently you changed the sys, or you added new functionality, right? You're now able to export KMZs through Maven Bridge, but you know, so you've expanded the range of drones significantly. So have you seen a lot of uptake through that?
yes, I'm actively monitoring how much it's used, and it's constantly growing. And
Hmm.
it's totally free for now, and that will be free for a long time, I think. With the DJI, you have to wait for them to release the new SDK to support new
Hmm.
drones. So, and since there was this, let's say, backdoor with the KMZ file to use a lot of other drones, I had to take that door too. I'm not the first using that. There's a lot of other apps that do the same, and
Yep.
I had to jump in that. For me, I was testing my KMZ file, put in the remote or in the DJI app was a pain. And that's why I started developing Maven Bridge. And for and as a starter, this is usable for everybody. So okay, let's pack it right, and
Hmm.
because in the
Yep.
beginning was just a Windows. I was drag and dropping my files, and that was. But,
Yeah, and that was a pain to do, right? You had to rename them, and you know they had that funky naming convention, and
yes, you have to find the right path. That was a little
yeah, it
depth.
was, yeah, it was awkward. I mean, I did do it myself a few times, and you know it wasn't great. And the funny thing is, and maybe I shouldn't tell you this, I was chatting with Jim from DroneLink, because DroneLink has the same functionality, right, to export
Yes,
KMGs, and they were talking about developing their own one, but then they took a look at yours and said, why don't we just tell people to use his one? Because they were basically like, why would I go and develop something when it's already there and working really well, you know? So let me just ask you a question, because KMZs are where you upload, you know, into the DJI Fly app. That's not Virtual Stick. Is Maven Evo Virtual Stick, or is it onboard components, or is it a mix of both?
it's a both. In Maven Evo, yes. At the moment, only the Mini 4 Pro has an onboard mission. That is the only
Hmm.
drone capable of that. That is supported by Maven Evo, and also there's the Mini 3 and Mini 3 Pro that are Virtual Stick. And don't know, but I don't know if the audience of this will know
We
what the
have
difference
some of them.
behind.
Actually, it would be a great if you could explain the difference between Virtual Stick. Some people do, some people don't, and there are
Yes.
people that think they do and actually don't. So please, give an explanation.
It's simple. Virtual Stick is, let's say, the app that virtually move the stick of your remote and pilot the drone to perform a mission, let's say. So
Right.
the app is actively monitoring the status of the drone, position, speed, orientation, camera,
Hmm.
including, and from the data in, from the telemetry, it's send the uh, command to pilot the drone and for all the mission. On board is, on the other hand, is we pack all the mission in file and is sent to the drone. The drone firmware can process this file and execute the mission in complete autonomy. Most people say an app that can do onboard mission is more advanced, but it's very more difficult to, let's say, develop the virtual stick.
I mean, there's an interesting, and this is just my experience with the two, right? Because DroneLink has the same functionality again. I've got a lot of experience with that. The virtual stick, in my experience, gives you more functionality because you
More
can literally,
flexibility. You
yeah,
can do everything.
you can do everything exactly. Whereas onboard has a limited amount of functionality.
Yes, that's true.
But the other side of that is the virtual stick. There's a delay. There's a delay in the telemetry between
Exactly. Yes.
So what you can find is that when you're doing things, particularly on curving things like orbits and things like that, you can find virtual stick gets a little jerky, and onboard components does it beautifully smoothly because it's all contained within the app. And that's my experience. So I can see the advantages of both and the disadvantages of both.
Yes, I can say if you have to do photogrammetry, the first stick is perfect, no problem. So you have to take
Right.
picture and
Yeah.
you have total control. You can do the paths that you want without have to stay with some rules of the onboard mission. And also there's the problem of the delay, and mostly the problem of the delay was originally with the Mini 2. That I think was the first drone where we had to develop with a stick because that doesn't have the onboard capabilities.
Right.
Because with the Mini 3, for example, the same algorithm that we use is very smooth and we can do course paths and orbits very, very, very smooth like onboard.
So one question going in a different direction. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong. Right now, the Mavic 3 Enterprise, the Matrice 4, those enterprise drones, they're not supported by your software, right? Is that correct?
Right.
And are there any plans to change that?
That's correct. And just because I don't own one of those professional drones, and that was not my target until last year. Now my target was people that use drone to make movies for YouTube, let's say, or video like that. And now I switch, let's say, to some people that actually work with drones. The fact is, yes, I already bought RC Pro. That I need to develop a special apps for that controller because it doesn't have Google services that my apps runs on. First of all, the map, it doesn't have Google Maps on it, so my app is working on Google Maps and so I have to reboot on another maps engine.
It becomes awkward as well because there's an RC Pro, but there's an RC Pro Enterprise as well, and they're actually different.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see two sides to that because, from a photogrammetry standpoint, the software that comes with the enterprise drones is actually pretty good. So depending on what you're doing, it might not be worth the time and effort involved, depending on your target market. So I mean, you'll need to make that decision. But I haven't actually had much experience with this, but one of the features that yours has that I don't think many of the others have is the VR head tracking. Is that on all the drones, or is that just some of them?
Yes, all the drones. Not all the drones can move left and right, but all can move up and down. That's it. Yes, that's the VR function is one that I begin with because it was, let's say, easier or less complex. And also, I was scared in the beginning to pilot the drone automatically with my app because I was scared that everybody crashed the drone and then complain with me.
Right.
So I said, well, we are you still pilot the drone, so what can go wrong? And
Right.
yeah, and that was also a thing that I want to try myself. So that's how I begin. And
Yeah, I was just going to say that's actually a big risk, not huge risk, but yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, I was using not your app per se, but and I was using, Maven, Lychee, it doesn't matter, any flight control app, and they say, and I set it up and I flew it and it crashed my drone. I always find that a little interesting because I think when you look into it, like 99 times out of 100, it was user error, right? They actually put something in the flight path that caused it to do something. It didn't just drop out of the sky. So that's actually, if I were in your shoes, I'd be very worried about people saying, your software crashed my drone. I think in some ways, because if you look at Lychee stays in beta almost forever. I think,
yeah,
the latest version is still in beta and it's been out for like 3 years. My thought on that is they're probably doing that because they're saying, if we just leave the beta logo on everything, people can't sue us. Right? Because you can just say it's beta software. You took a risk. I don't know. You're not doing that. I appreciate that you're not doing that. You're putting your stuff out there and saying, nope, it's been
I
tested.
was scared very scared at the beginning, but I have to say I don't receive many complaints.
That's great.
I think I with 4 or 5 emails that the people crash the drone that write to me why. Yeah. I remember once that one person made an autonomous mission in a city center and sent on purpose out of reach of the remote, and the drone didn't come back. I
Uh-huh.
say, why you do that?
Well, I remember that. This is way back. I remember seeing somebody, this was early days of Lychee, and they'd set up an orbit around a tour, like a skyscraper. And then they set it off and it starts doing the orbit. And of course, at some point it goes behind the building
Yes,
and they lost connectivity. And
I
the
just go
drone was,
straight to the building.
yeah, exactly. Right. The drone was set up to say, oh, okay, if you lose connectivity, return to home. But it was a super tall building. So what did it do? It started to return to home. It climbed to the return to home altitude, flew straight into the building. They found it
Yes.
on the floor on the other side. Automation. I'm a huge fan of drone automation. I use it a lot, but I'm always aware that you got to be really careful about it. It's one of the features that I really like. Is that Maven and many of the others, but Maven in particular has all these features where you can run a simulation of the flight and see where it's going to go ahead of time. And that's like, really, really useful, particularly being able to, run it or export to Google Earth and run it in there and get up to date imagery. It's not perfect, but I think it's an
Yes, it
important
gives you
feature.
a good idea of the road before
Yeah.
launching the drone.
So let's just talk a little bit about the road ahead. So I know we talked a little bit earlier about, you got Maven Cloud coming, and then what's coming after that? What are you thinking? What are your plans? Can you talk about it?
Of course, Maven Cloud will be more refined. I will add it in the mobile app too, in Maven Evo, so you have synchronized mission. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I love exploring photogrammetry processing.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, I'd love to have something of mine, but let's let's keep it in a dream area because
Right.
I know
It's
people.
it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
It's other
It
way.
is a lot of work. So that's why I'm hoping, you and Piero. I mean, I
Yes,
would love to
yes,
see this
that will be the
collaboration
fastest,
because
road.
you want, yeah, you want to have photogrammetry. He wants to have flight control.
Yes,
I think you guys need to just get your heads together and come up with something that gives us everything we need. Because I'm being
yes,
selfish here, right? I'm saying, please, you two go out and develop all the things that I need so that I
yes,
have
yeah,
good stuff.
exactly. That will be the fastest way to have one workflow with for everything.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great. No, I'd like to see that. That would be really cool. So there were a couple of questions that came in. Somebody said, are they going to support older drones like the Phantom 4 Pro? And I thought it already supported the Phantom 4 Pro, but not Maven Evo. You have to go to the original Maven. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. I mean, when I started Maven on iOS, yes. First, I have never owned a Phantom drone. At the time when I got my Mavic Pro, a neighbor of mine got a Phantom 4. I don't remember the exact model. So Maven on iOS was support. I was tested with that drone that was working. I put in the list all the Phantom and never received any complaints. But my neighbor, this drone is no more available. It's crashed from a
Oh, okay.
time
Oh,
ago.
no.
And when I start on working on Android, I never test Maven Android with a Phantom.
Okay.
I still kept it listed as supported, but I receive an email from time to time that's not working with the Phantom, and I answer them. I think I'm going to remove the Phantom from the supported list because I can't test them. I can't find what's the issue. So honestly, I don't know because I have feedback from people with Phantom that it's working, and also I have received some emails that don't work, but I can directly test. All the other listed drone I have and directly test everyone, and because every drone is a little different or
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
remote, or so you have to have the hardware to be sure that's work perfectly.
Now that I know that, I might be able to find somebody that's got one that has some time. I'll see if I can find. I think I know somebody that still has one. Even if they don't, I mean, what some other apps do in that case, because it's almost impossible to test with every drone. I mean, there are so many out there now, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
What some other apps do is they say, oh, we believe it will work, but it's unsupported. So they just put a little asterisk next to it
Yes.
and they say, yeah, they list it on the drones that it's compatible with, but then they just say it's unsupported and you use it at your own risk and see what people do.
Yes. Also, my Android app free to download and to test before you can make purchasing app, but you can try it for yourself.
Oh yeah, let's talk a little bit about DJI. Right, so DJI are a little strange in the way that they support SDKs. They sometimes put them out, they sometimes don't. They change
Yes.
things. So how are you changing things on your side to try to make sure that you are able to keep up with when they do put things out, that you can get them out quickly? And what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I keep monitoring the developer site of DJI for they never lately say they will anticipate that they will release an update.
Right.
When I started with DJI, they had a roadmap. They say a few months we will release this SDK. Now it's all secret. They don't.
Right.
We make a direct question on the forum. They answer we don't know when the new
Right.
release. And yes, that is very difficult to work with this manner.
Yeah, I'm sure.
One of the reasons that I never left my full-time job because this is something I can rely still, and that's why also why I want to go in the photography, let's say,
Right.
processing world to have more control on the future, let's say.
Right. I got it. That makes perfect sense. I sort of put this to somebody else as well. But anyway, if somebody's already comfortable with they've got a flight automation system, Pilot 2, Lychee, Drone Link, what should they just stick with what they've got, or is there some reason why they would want to switch over to yours?
The reason I think because it's different, my apps are different, and
Mhm.
I believe that if somebody try it, you will see that it's very easy to use. I like to put the user interface in very priority when I develop a function. The user interface must be simple, and I also like to put a lot of let's say info button next to the function that explain what that does.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I don't know how to convince somebody to use my app, but my apps are free to try, and I invite them to try and believe by themselves. I also want to add that the development of my apps is strongly driven by user feedback. So when someone writes to the support email, it's always me that I personally read all emails and managing them. Basically, every day I receive a request for improvements or new features or bug reports from the US to South Korea. No joking. I always try to find a solution for all email that I receive. I think that this direct connection with the developer helps a lot to speed up the process from the moment that the user finds the problem to the moment it's eventually it gets fixed.
I have to say, when I tried your app out after a long time, I was very impressed with the user friendliness of it. I thought you did a really nice job putting the way the buttons are and keeping things very simple, you know, like the red, amber, green, you know, traffic light system to tell you how the control is and, you know, things like that. I thought it was very easy. And I really liked, and I hadn't seen this in any other app. One of the things that you have is you have this little icon that shows you, is the controller facing the drone, which
Yes.
I hadn't seen before. And that is such a useful feature. Because at first I didn't know what it was. I was like, what's this funny little thing down here? And then I figured it out. It's like, oh, look, it's telling me the drone is over here. It shows you where the drone is, you know, and if you turn this way, color changes to let you know, like, hey, your signal's not as clear as it should be. You know, you should face the drone.
Exactly.
Which I found actually really quite clever. And like I said, I don't think I'd seen that anywhere else. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, just to go back as well to the, you know, should people try it out? I mean, you said it's free. I'm a big believer in having backups for everything. You know, when I go to jobs, I bring 2 drones every single time. And, you know, and sometimes a different drone that does the same thing. So like I did a big job yesterday. I took a Mavic 3 Enterprise, which is the one that I run that job with by default. And I brought a Matrice 4 Enterprise with me as well, so that should something go wrong, I can switch over to the Matrice. And I kind of like the idea that the Matrice is a different drone in some ways, because it has the same functionality, but if there's something funky going on with, let's say, the firmware of the Mavic 3 Enterprise that causes problems, it might work fine. So, I mean, you know, one of the things that I think people might want to consider it for is just, it is either free or relatively cheap, depending on how you're looking on it. And, you know, there's really no downside to having backups. So I think it's, you know, it's worth exploring just from that perspective. I don't have a lot more questions. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. I wish you the best of luck with the app. If there's anything I can do to help move that along, please let me know. And you know, yeah, I hope people will go along and try it out. I think it's a really nice app. I think it's got great new features, and you know, I've been impressed with it. So, and with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me and give me this opportunity to talk about my app. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.